I'm Mikki, and this is Mikkipedia, where I sit down and chat to doctors, professors, athletes, practitioners, and experts in their fields related to health, nutrition, fitness, and well-being. And I'm delighted that you're here. Morning, everybody. Welcome to Mikkipedia and Wednesday. Favourite day of the week. Really, it's hump day, of course. So today I am super excited to bring to you my conversation with my mate, Shaun Collins. Now, anyone who is in the running scene in and around New Zealand and beyond, I would say, will know Shaun Collins. He is the successful co-founder and race director of Lactic Turkey, which brings to us running events, row gaining events. He's also been popularised, if you want to say that, by doing crazy ass things like circumventing Auckland on foot, all 251 kilometres of it, of doing the Revenant twice, doing it once, figuring out the psychology and the mental aspect of it, then nailing it the second time, and all these other challenges. And it was just fantastic to sit down with Shaun and talk to him about it. So, this week we talk about his upbringing, the benefits of his outdoor lifestyle, the extreme endurance and what sort of pushes him to go to the extremes, the Revenant, including the nutrition building up and during it. And we have such a good conversation around the mental training to manage pain. And if you are an endurance athlete, you will definitely want to be taking down some notes around this, because Shaun brings some really practical, actionable strategies to help you with training the brain to do these events. Because let's face it, if you are in the endurance scene, you've got the fitness. It's that mental fitness which really makes the difference. Or at least it seems to for me anyway. We talk about that brain endurance training. We talk about sleep deprivation, power naps, and even sleepwalking during his longer events. And also what the next incarnation of the Hillary Ultra will look like, which anyone in the running scene in and around Auckland will have been missing this event over the last few years. So you can reach Shaun at lacticturkey.co.nz. Also on Strava and Instagram at The Running Beast. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Shaun Collins. Live, woohoo!
Straight to the interweb, no editing.
That's awesome. Do you know what? It would be raw, dynamic.
It would.
It'd be, and often Shaun, so kia ora, Shaun. Thank you. Thank you for coming to our humble abode and taking time out of your Saturday to chat to me. When I thought it would be great for us to sit down and have a conversation, in part because I know you're a good talker, which is like prerequisite.
Yeah.
But also just a mad keen runner. And oftentimes when we have conversations with like-minded individuals, you're kind of sitting there and at the end of it, you feel really satisfied and like really full up, and I'm like, mate, I reckon there'd be so many people who would just be interested in what we had to say.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the reasons why I started Mikkipedia anyway. So I could just get to talk to mates about things that we both like.
Yeah, well, you think of the times you go out running with your mates and you're just chatting away, filling in space, I guess.
Yeah.
And you're picking up little tidbits of information and things that, I might try that. And but you're learning and having interesting discussions. You get to the end of it, that was awesome.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
I guess the only thing missing from that equation right here, right now is, and of course, the run.
The movement.
And interesting, we've both come from dry needling sessions.
And can't move at the moment.
No, but as a runner, it's almost like you're either about to be injured, you're injured, or you're coming back from injury.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop us, because running is so much more than just the actual activity, eh? It's a bit of a lifestyle.
It is, yeah. And it flows through into the rest of your life as well.
Yeah.
Not just the planning around it, but I guess the benefits and I guess some of the not benefits as well.
Yeah. And you know, Shaun, I think you are like the epitome of what you've just described, that it kind of flows through your life. Like I was looking at your Facebook page, and obviously my prior knowledge of you and your life, you've built your life and partly your career around epic adventures related to running and of course multi-sport stuff as well, but now I'm thinking predominantly running.
Yeah.
And you bring that to the people as well. Like you've totally embraced that running lifestyle, but you're still just a regular guy, you know?
Yeah, juggling family and job and
Yep, injury and whatnot. I just would really love to start at the beginning, and can you just talk to me about where the love for running and the outdoors, where did that originate from for you?
Yeah, it's hard to think of where it originated. I think it's always been, our upbringing was on farms.
Yeah.
So mum and dad actually quit their in quite much real jobs to go share milking, and mainly so dad was an architect and mum was a teacher.
Yeah.
And they quit that to give us kids, me and my sister, the lifestyle of living on a farm and all of that living on a farm brings. And so they share milked, and so we moved around quite a bit, and I guess that's where it started. Is you go off exploring into the bush and or up on the farm and that, and it just sort of grows from there as you get bigger and can start to run. Then it gets wider and wider. So I think that's where it started, and then it develops as you have more adventures. You want more. Yeah.
And it feels like what you've just described your parents do is the type of lifestyle that was that something you always wanted for your family? Because if it's not your epic adventures that I'm reading about on Facebook, it's Mad's adventure with your girls and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, it is, and that's kind of been brought home recently over Christmas, and that we went tramping with the girls, and Zara is actually moving out tomorrow. She's moving off to university, so we lose one of them. But we had this cool adventure with two big tramps around Stewart Island, Rakaya, and Rekiura, and the restart walk. Since then, people have said, "Oh, are you dragging them around?" Or
yeah,
we're like, no, they're keen as, and they were into it. And at the end of those two big walks, they said, "Well, no more walking. We want to cruise for the rest of the holiday." But they love it, and so it's quite cool that we haven't pressured them into stuff. They've naturally gotten more and more interested, and they want to do it with their friends next summer or whatever. So it's definitely something that we are keen to nurture, I guess. It's that adventure, exploring.
Yeah, like I think about my childhood, and it was very suburban New Zealand, and I had little rat bags as brother and sisters. With the police knocking on the door a few times, of course, the course of a childhood. And I had my nose stuck in a book until I was about 14.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got a little bit active on the back of friends being active. And then somehow I was just sort of drawn to it. But it wasn't because of the family upbringing. And it's not that, parents are just different, right? So my parents were they just worked, and my dad went for walks and stuff, but certainly wasn't the real outdoorsy kind of type, which you describe how your parents wanted you to kind of be, but also equally how you guys are. And I feel like your kids are super lucky to have that, because other parents, and I'm sure that it's similar regardless of the type of situation you're in, but constant battles with devices, and even those who are really wanting the kids to get outdoors and be more adventurous and go exploring and stuff, there's that constant battle between technology.
And even our girls, when they're back at school after the holidays, our friends, we asked them what they did, and they just hang around at home watching. And that was for the whole summer, and this holiday seemed really long for some reason, because they finished early and started late. But our girls can't imagine spending all of that time not actually going and doing some adventure and just being at home the whole time. It's
yeah.
Do
it's funny, Baz and I often talk, we're like, oh, should we take the camper out here, or should we go camping here? And it's almost always a hard yes, because, you're not going to look back and go, remember that weekend we went to Albany Mall and got sushi and I bought that top from Glassons, It's more like, do you remember that time we went to Hanua's and we saw those really big fat pukekos and wondered who on earth has been feeding those pukekos? That's how you build memories.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that initial push out the door to pack and go. But once you've pretty much, as soon as you drive out of the driveway, you're like, oh yes.
Yeah.
You just slip into that nice feeling that you're away and you're off somewhere.
Yeah, and for us at least, it's the battle of the Sunday afternoon evening, because of course you kind of have to get back and get organised for the week ahead. But if you just put it out of your mind and think, you know what, it's really only a 24-hour sort of rush for that next day trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And then you will just remember the fun weekend you have, rather than that the hours just ticked by because you were pottering around at home, right?
Doing chores.
Exactly, doing chores. And they're not going anywhere, so there's no point
they really can wait.
Yeah, exactly. Shaun, one of the things which I really wanted to kind of do a good deep dive with you was just you take it to the nth degree, and I look at it and I admire it, and I also am a little bit intimidated by the types of adventures and stuff that you managed to tick off. I mean, of course, you are I'm going to say co-founder, am I right, of Lactic Turkey, who subsequently took it over.
Yeah.
You guys put on a number of events for people, but you had the Hillary. But as I understand it, you actually did a trillery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you took that 80K and you times it by 3 and you ran it.
It had to be done.
Apparently so. And obviously there's the Revenant, which you described as your bestest and most perfect run ever.
Yep.
So I'd love to talk to you about that. And then, of course, last year when COVID put a nail in the coffin for almost every single event, and I think for you were planning to go to India, was that right?
Yeah, so to a race called La Ultra, which is 555 Ks up at sort of 5,000 metres above sea level. So that was meant to be in August.
That's right.
Yeah.
And instead you took yourself off for a jog around Auckland.
Yeah, a wee jog.
Yeah. So, you have this love for the outdoors. Your adventures, you do an adventure and you just want to continue to challenge yourself. Where does the motivation and drive for these really long events come from for you, Shaun?
It's trying to find my limit.
Yeah.
To some degree, but as well as, so that's, I guess, on the internal side. On the external side, it's looking at finding new places and exploring.
Yeah.
And so I don't like to do a race over and over, again, the same thing. Try and spread it around.
Yeah.
And the longer adventures is finding that limit and just pushing. You learn so much, and it's a puzzle trying to put all the different facets of a big adventure like that, or a big race, to get it all perfectly right.
Yeah.
And so each time you tinker with something, and then you want to try again so that you can tinker on what didn't work last time. So and so it's a vicious circle, you might say, that you keep trying to improve everything. And by doing that, that you can go longer, because I did 200 Ks last year, so I'll do 300 Ks the next year.
Amazing.
So it just keeps going from that. And I think for me that started after our OE and came back to New Zealand, and a mutual mate of ours, Phil, invited me to do an adventure race out at Coromandel. It was meant to be a 24-hour race, and so mountain biking, kayaking, running, and navigation and stuff. And I hadn't been training, and I had the Heathrow injection, so I was a bit larger than I used to be. But I was keen as to do it, and we spent hours with this horrible double surf ski that we kept falling out of. So we were right at the back of the field in no time because we kept falling out, and that ended up taking 36 hours.
Mate.
And so, because that race either had a short year or a long year that the organisers got into a pattern of doing. And so, I wasn't prepared for a 36-hour race. I was thinking it was about 24. But after that, then the next thing that comes along, I've done 36 hours and I didn't have any experience at doing it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't fit or training for that. So the next thing oh, that's easy, I've already done 36 hours, and so it just sort of gets bigger and bigger like that.
Yeah, and so that was a multi-sport event. When I met you, Shaun, many moons ago, I believe it was out somewhere in Titirangi, we were at someone's house and there was some epic kind of orienteering adventure going on. We had mutual friends in Rachel and Rebecca Smith and Darren Ashmore and, of course, Phil. So did you kind of have that orienteering multi-sport background and then we just kind of moved to running, or has running always been kind of the backdrop in all of this?
Yeah,
or?
running's been the main action that I've done. So through school and then I got into orienteering, and so that was obviously that's running, but it's also got the mental aspect as well. And so I did that at a New Zealand rep level as a junior, and then into the seniors and coached the junior development squad. So I was right in there and like in committees and all that sort of stuff. And then did the travel thing, and so the orienteering and running was just some recreational running. And so I got back to New Zealand after that, and the orienteering did a little bit of, but as family came along, there was less time for that, and I got into adventure racing and did that for 2 or 3 years, mainly 24 to sort of 40-hour races. And then after that, it sort of went from there. The family really kicked in, and so they had to go. And so it was just pure running from then and getting longer and longer.
Nice. And
into the ultras.
And in quite a big way. And before we kick this off, I asked you whether you had a coach, and Scotty Hawker's your coach.
So I got in touch with Scotty a couple of years ago for a couple of reasons. One, for motivation, I guess, because someone else telling you what to do every morning gets you out the door, and I know how to make a plan, and I've done plans for other people and all that, so it was more having his ideas telling me what to do, and also from his international experience and races of the longer distances and in Europe and that, getting some of that experience fed into me through his coaching. And it's very much we catch up every week, so the plan is only weekly. We don't have a 6-month plan or anything. So he's chopping and changing it based on how I'm feeling in our chats.
That's awesome.
So it's really cool. And I know that he gets coached by David Roach, who coaches lots of elites in the trail running world, and some of that stuff trickles down through Scotty through to me. So it's having that extra experience and at a high long level that you can gain all sorts of little tidbits from.
Absolutely. For you, Shaun, is having a coach also beneficial? Does he hold you back where he sees you need to be held back? Is that a thing for you? Or I only say that because I look at the epic adventures you do and go, mate, that takes a real special kind of person to want to get out there for 40, 50 plus hours. Do you need to be held back, or actually that's not a thing for you?
A little bit. I think I set out what I want to do, and usually I've got a plan for the year, a rough plan for the year, and it might change a little bit, and I'm not doing these adventures every month or whatever, like I'll pick and choose. So, and I'm a big fan of having a decent recovery afterwards, so that the body recovers and the mind. Actually, I prefer those big recoveries more for the head, that you get over that training as becoming a chore type thing, I guess.
Sure.
So you're recovering from the big epic mission, but also from that grind of training leading up to the mission. So usually we lay out a plan, and he's really good at saying, that he has a couple of times said, that might be a bit much. But generally he's keen to work around it. I mean, an example is the little challenge that my wife and I have set out to do, the Karamatua hill up to Mount Donald McLean. So we're doing one of those plus one a month. So by December we'll have to do 12 reps of it.
So now how long would one of those take you?
So today we did 2, and it was just under 3 hours.
Awesome.
And 1,200 metres vert.
Awesome.
So that's 2 for February and 3 for it'll be 3 for March, and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
keep building up. And so I mentioned that just in a conversation with Scotty, and he was like, "Oh yeah, can you maybe let me know when during the month they're going to be so that we can plan around it?" So yeah, no, he's flexible, and he knows. He's gotten to know me quite well as far as my recovery times, and that it is a reasonably quick recovery usually, and that I am aware of pacing. So that's a sort of a side challenge that I'm not going to be pushing to get fast times or anything. It's just to get it done and have some fun.
Completion.
Yeah.
So 2 for February, 3 for March, 4 for April. Just so I'm clear, in December we'll be doing 12. Is
12,
that?
yeah.
Mate, that sounds awesome. see, with me, I hear that and go, that is an epic adventure, and I've just clocked that, and I'll be talking to Baz later about. But equally, I also know that I'm just as likely to wake up tomorrow and go, oh, what the hell? No way I was going to do that. Why would you? Shaun,
and it's quite cool. So from that, because I've only posted about it on like the Strava runs of it.
Yes.
But it's amazing that people say, oh, that's an amazing thing, I'm going to do something similar, but obviously not to the extreme, but they're going to like that. They like that challenge of increasing 1 a month of whatever rep they're doing.
Yes.
To slowly build up during the year.
Yeah.
And that sort of comes back to the you mentioned about some people, it's quite foreign to go out on an adventure, go do something like the Revenant, or even go for a, more than a 3-hour run in the bush that isn't on roads.
Yeah.
But it's just that experience. Like, one of the reasons that I share lots about what I do is because I know that it helps motivate people, and you get feedback from people saying, oh, that was so cool, and I went out the next day and did this, and so it's cool to help that process and encourage people, like, find a mate that has done it and go with them a couple of times, and you slowly build up that experience. It doesn't matter if you grew up in urban with no running or tramping or anything, and you were stuck your head in a book till you're 14. You get with people that have done it, and you pick up those skills.
Absolutely. And I can imagine from a motivational perspective that must help motivate you as well, knowing that your adventures really help kind of, bring other people up and help them kind of, get in amongst it and do it themselves. Yeah,
and it really came home after doing that round Auckland thing.
Yes.
Because I was really amazed at how many people had seen that on the news, and even while we were running, were like, hey, that's awesome. And then I went for a recovery walk a couple of days afterwards.
Yeah.
And this guy walked past us with his dog, and then he turned back around sort of as we'd walked past and goes, are you that guy that ran around Auckland? That's awesome. I saw you do that, and then I went out for a run, and I haven't run for 10 years. And it's like, and it happens so often, and you get such a buzz out of it.
Yeah, that's so great.
There's a side, like, I get awesome enjoyment of doing it. But then you've got the side thing of encouraging others to do it.
Yeah. So, like, I do really want to chat to you about the Revenant, but because you mentioned it, what inspired you to circumnavigate Auckland? On foot in one time. Was it training for the backyard ultra that was coming up, or was it the fact that you couldn't do India, or? Yeah,
it was a replacement. I'd always wanted to do it. So the year before that, I ran all the volcanoes in Auckland.
Yeah.
So there's 57 volcanoes. So I ran between them and then up and down them all in one go.
That's right.
And it was just under 200 Ks. And while I was doing that, I was thinking, well, what's next? And that's when I thought about doing the circumnavigation of Auckland. And so I was using the housing as a boundary when you look at it on a sort of a satellite view.
Yeah.
And that was to get some extra distance and to explore, heaps of areas that I hadn't been to before, and trying to make use of as many like trails as I could find along that route.
Yeah.
And so once the COVID thing kicked in India, obviously wasn't going to happen, then I switched straight to that thing that I might do sometime to being, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of training did that involve?
So lots of these things I don't kick in with heaps of extra. So that was 305 Ks.
Yeah.
And you can't really train for 305 Ks. And so it's more just lots of quality sessions to have some strength. And I know that I've got a massive base So there's no need to do lots of Ks.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
So all of my training for all of these things is, before the Auckland thing, 6 hours might have been the longest session that I'd done.
Yeah.
Because I know that I've done much longer than that, so I don't need to train to have that under the belt.
Yeah.
So it's more quality stairs and hills, and so that I'm strong and can just keep going.
Yeah. And every day do you train? Like, do you have a day off?
Yeah, I have 2 days off a week.
Yeah, nice.
Fridays and Mondays.
Yeah, cool.
And yeah, that's pretty much. Otherwise, it's in the mornings before first wake up, 5 o'clock.
Yeah, before the day gets started. Yeah. It's the best part, really. Strength work. Outside of stairs, hills, do you hit the gym? Do you chuck some tin? What's your...
No, I do some just body weight stuff.
Nice.
Around home.
Yeah.
And there's a time where I wasn't doing it, just got out of the habit.
Yeah.
After resting for a bit and then did my back in again. I thought, that'll learn you.
Yeah.
So it's just constantly doing core work and some Pilates stuff with wife Madeline and around home.
Yeah, nice.
And staying on top of that so that I keep nice and strong.
Yeah, sure. So let's switch gears and go to the Revenant. Can you describe to people what type of race this is? It's quite an epic event, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it was modelled on the Barclay marathons.
Yes.
Some say it's the New Zealand's version of that, but there's quite a few differences that make it quite unique.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically 4 loops that are around 50k each and 4,000 metres vertical each. So total of 200 k's, and it's meant to be 16,000 metres in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do all of it in 60 hours, but there's a 30-hour cut-off for the first 2 loops as well.
Yeah.
And then 15 hours for the next cut-off. But you're having to navigate around, so it's not a course with arrows following a trail. You're up in the tussock lands and using a map and compass to get from around these 14 checkpoints. And so you do 1 loop of those 14 and then you come back to base and stock up with food and water and everything.
Yeah.
And then you go back the opposite direction.
Wow.
And it's so the differences to Barclays is self-supported.
Yeah.
So when you get back to base, you've got a bag and you do everything yourself to get ready and have a meal or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you head out again.
Yeah.
So that's quite unique. And then it's an individual thing. In the first year, they had some teams of 2 people that stuck together the whole time.
That's right.
And there's only been 4 finishes to it now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so, as I said earlier, you described this as, one of your best runs. What did the training look like leading up? I mean, I know you just described your general training plan. Was there, what kind of hours would go in for you on a week-by-week basis, and how long were you planning with that as the goal in mind?
Yeah, so it's sort of been, because I did it the year before, so it's sort of I knew I'd go back and do it again because I knew that it could be finished.
Yeah, because you didn't finish the first year?
No, so nobody finished the first year.
That's right.
I think a lot of it was unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess everyone didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
We started at I think it was 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock in the night.
Yeah.
And it was foggy, so you couldn't see more than 3 or 4 metres in front of you.
Yeah.
And it was like mist, so you walked that 4 metres through high tussock that was sort of up to your hip height.
Yeah.
And so you're instantly drenched. And so that was the start of this race that we were trying to navigate through that. And so it was just a beast of a thing.
Yeah.
And some of the checkpoints people had trouble finding.
Yeah.
Sort of once you got to the area, you're looking for a little lunchbox sized plastic container which has got a book on that you pull out your relevant page, so that's how you know that you've got there.
Yes.
And trying to people could get to the general area, but then trying to find this little thing in the fog and rain, and it was quite full on. And the thing that I got 1.5 laps. The furthest someone got 2 laps, but outside of the cut-off time. Yeah. And then there's a couple of us that did 1.5 laps, 1 3/4 laps.
Yeah.
And the thing that got to me in the end was I think it was mental exhaustion more than physical. Yeah. Because the pace, you're not going super fast. Yeah. But in that case, because of the bad weather and stuff, you are navigating the whole time, so you're concentrating the whole time. Yeah. And that's something that I really worked on for the year before the next one.
Yeah. And so, as an event director, did you look back on your experience and kind of think, if this was my event, I'd do things differently? Am I able to ask, like, were there a lot of those kind of questions in your head and things going around after that first event?
Yes, yeah. And they always do it. It doesn't matter if it's a little 5K run or whatever, you always think, could do this and this.
Yeah.
But in that race, some of the checkpoints are a little bit out as far as their placement.
Yeah.
So they weren't quite right.
Yeah.
And because of my orienteering background, and there was a couple of other orienteering guys there as well, that's frustrating that you're in the right place, but the thing isn't there.
Yeah.
And so you start to start panicking, and that's just taking more and more of your energy, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was quite frustrating after that.
Yeah.
Because there's like 2 or 3 checkpoints where they're slightly wrong, or it was a real mission, a lucky. So that was the frustrating thing. It was a lucky dip. So instead of you navigate to the right spot, you'd find the thing.
Yes.
It's more you'd navigate to the right spot, and then it's a treasure hunt that you used to do it at kids' parties to try and find it rather than being skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that got frustrating.
Yeah. So Shaun, you said that you worked on that mental toughness for the next year leading up to your next event. What kind of things would you have done to help, I suppose, strengthen that part of it for you?
So I was doing I'm quite analytical, and I'll be like a dog with a bone to go and research.
Yeah.
And listening to podcasts all on like mental toughness and sort of brain training and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's doing more practice. So doing mental work before you go for a run, so that you're tired mentally as you go for a run, so you're getting used to that. And then lots of self-talk, and I didn't do too much visualization, but sorts of like positive self-talk and those sorts of things.
Nice.
So that when things started to go wrong, then you wouldn't incur energy by stressing about it. You like bring yourself back down, and I did quite a bit of meditation and that sort of stuff as well, to just have some keywords that can come back.
Yeah, nice.
And your breathing exercises too.
Yeah, cool.
And I found that really good for pain.
Distraction from... Yeah.
When I did with the Auckland circumnavigation, I had really bad Achilles issues from 30k onwards.
Yeah.
Mate. And about 200k's, it was really bad, and like my daughter was crying when I was leaving the aid station because I was like hobbling away, and she's like, "How's he gonna do it?" And it was just like breathing through it and like focusing on that breathing to get through the pain, and I found eventually the pain disappeared.
Amazing.
And so the Achilles was still swollen, and you take your shoe off and touch it, and it's like, oh, but to actually do the job of running, it was like it was gone for the last 80k's. It was quite amazing.
That is amazing.
And really powerful for like, the next time I do something, then I know what to do.
Yeah. Do you know, I have heard that, and probably even experienced it, when you turn up at the start of a race and you're like, not quite sure if my calf's going to hold, or my hips, my hammy's not going to give me grief, and actually just the whole, the fact that you're in that environment and your head is switched towards more of a, you're focusing on the end goal, suddenly it's almost like everything else kind of clouds, and you've just got that one single focus.
And so you're not focusing or being distracted by that pain. And your body knows that you can keep going because you've had that sore calf and you've trained through it. And so it's not going to, like, your body's going to keep going to finish the race. Because now you're focusing on the race rather than that pain. It's pretty amazing stuff.
It is. And that training your kind of that mental fatigue, I have read papers talking about this idea of doing complex, like, cryptic crossword puzzles or things which you find fatiguing to help you get through those longer events, just because your brain is, because so much of it is mental.
Yes, yeah. And so lots of the research I was doing is looking at the perceived effort.
Nice.
And how you can, if you do training and those sorts of things, that you're trying to trick the brain to say, well, actually, you're not tired. You're not going to die. You can keep going further. And there's so many examples of it all around the research and stuff. And the more you dive into it, the more you see and kind of realize, oh, that's true actually. And so, I was trying to find different ways that you can extend your brain's thought of the perceived effort so that you can stretch longer and longer.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm actually beta testing some devices that you can take running for brain endurance training.
Oh, wow.
And it's all set up for cycling, but they're just getting into trying to do the same for running.
Yeah.
And so the way it works at the moment with these running ones is I've got 2 little Velcro straps with buttons in them on each hand.
Awesome.
And you're listening for different tones. So based on the tone, you press the right side or the left side, or long press the right side or long press the left side. And so the tones get faster and they switch around.
Yeah.
And so it scores you. And so as you're running, just doing your normal training, you're like mentally challenging yourself.
Oh, wow.
And it gets harder and harder.
Yeah. And so is the idea of it as you're going along and you're hooked into this system and you're trying to kind of score as high as you can, over time, the more you practice, is it that kind of the more mentally kind of tough you probably
you'll
end
be
up
able to go further and
further.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome, Shaun.
Yeah,
so you're beta testing this right now.
Yeah. So
what's the company? Are you able to
it's
say?
called Rewire.
Okay.
And so they have the similar for cycling.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of research behind it to develop these. So on the cycling one, you're looking at, I can't remember what the test is called, but so it comes up, it puts on the screen a colour written.
Yeah.
But what's written, so it might say green, but it's in red.
And you've got to say that
it's say what colour the writing is versus what colour you're seeing.
Interesting.
And so, but you're doing the same sort of thing, but on a wind train or
Yeah.
So they've developed both the cycling and the running one, and just beta testing the running one before and there's an app that goes with it. So you're recording your scores, so you can see some improvement.
Yeah.
And there's also you do a daily fatigue assessment at the start of the day.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's testing your reaction time.
Yeah, cool.
First thing in the morning, and then it matches or pairs that with what sessions you did the day before and how you're feeling physically and mentally. And
that's
great.
It's
quite cool.
It's kind
and
of
for someone like me who's like really analytical and loves data and stuff, it's quite cool.
Yeah, totally. I can just imagine so many of my clients, like they're endurance athletes and they use HRV. They've got training peaks. They're all about Garmin. I'm all about Garmin. I quite like counting my steps, so that's actually my most important metric. But this would just add another element to it.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to combine the score of something like Rewire from what you might get a readout on your physical stress score or from your Aura ring or something like that.
Yes, and so the fatigue assessment takes into account your resting heart rate and
nice.
and other data from other devices pulls into that, so that you can start to it suggests what you should be doing that day as far as physically, but also mentally as far as doing some meditation or like oral listening and stuff. Different patterns and things.
So you're beta testing this now. Any idea of when it will be out for the running side of things? Because obviously it's available already for cycling.
Yes, yep. So at the Rewire website, and I'm not sure when the running one is going to be mainstream and available.
Yeah. Oh, cool. It'll be a watch this space. Yeah. So, Shaun, you obviously spent a long time in that kind of mental side of things. You also mentioned on your Facebook post when I was stalking your Facebook page that, everything went according to plan during the Revenant, including your nutrition. So obviously it's not just the nutrition on the day, which I'd love to ask you about, and I will. But generally speaking, how did you prepare from a nutrition standpoint in the lead up to an event like this?
Sort of the year before that, I had been doing sort of low-ish carb.
Mm-hmm.
And higher fats or quality fats leading up to the Trillery actually.
Yeah.
But sort of, not really tight about it, and still enjoying beers and things. And I'd been finding good results from that as far as how long I could go without needing to eat or drink. So extending those timeframes, which is always good as far as weight that you have to carry, especially on things like the Revenant, because you're self-supported, but also as far as the body, how it's feeling and stuff. And so lots of the training that I do is first thing in the morning, or during the week it's first thing in the morning, and fasting, so no eating beforehand, and that can be up to 2.5 hours, and include like quality sessions. And I'd found sort of as I trained up for that, that I could go do more and more, and having less effect on my energy levels and things.
Nice.
So I put it on with a couple of years with that, and it was quite good. But then 3 weeks before the Revenant, my wife and I decided that we'd like dive all in and go low carb properly. And
hang on, 3 weeks before successful Revenant, or
successful Revenant.
Yeah.
And dive all in and go really low carb and get rid of all of this like stuff that we were still having. So we were healthy eating and whole foods and all of that, but still having lots of potatoes and rice and some bread, not too much. And so getting rid of all of that. And for me, it was like a sort of a next level experience as far as the impact that it had on me. Positive impact.
Amazing.
And some weight dropped off, or quite a bit of weight dropped off.
In that 3 weeks?
A little bit in the 3 weeks. But definitely in the two months after. And my wife had some some usual teething things that you have, nausea and stuff when you dive all in. But I was lucky that I didn't, and so during the Revenant found that I didn't have to eat nearly as much, so it was less to carry, but also what I was eating, like lots of nuts and stuff, it was it just lasted a long time and seemed to be perfect. I had no low patches from low energy patches from the nutrition or hydration. So it was magic.
It's amazing, eh? So I don't think Mads will mind me saying on here that she's like, people often equate keto for women as just complete no-go, and as a nutritionist I have to moderate a bit of what I say on social media, because I know that if I say keto's fine for some women, people will read it as keto is a must-do for all women, you know, and then you'll get a lot of backlash. But certainly when we were talking, Mads was like, just it's really helped with her energy, and she said that she struggles to maintain her weight, and this has actually helped her gain and keep on muscle, and undoubtedly would be beneficial for bone and stuff like that. So I think people are quick to bash keto for women, but actually for some people it can really benefit. And equally, of course, for a guy, there's almost less question, really, and particularly in light of the types of events that you do, Shaun. The longer it is, the more suited it is to do a ketogenic approach. You are able to delay the use of glycogen once you adapt, and it sounds to me like that low carb and that extended aerobic base really lent itself well for you once you kind of went all in. Actually it was a pretty quick shift for you.
And I think that was the difference maybe between Madeline and I, that I was all right with it, probably because I already had been doing lots of stuff first thing in the mornings without food. So it just seemed a natural progression.
Nice. To
get those next levels.
So now I'm going to ask you, obviously as a nutritionist, so what would your typical day look like in terms of food?
So in the morning, that's like eggs or like no grain cereal. Good smoothie maybe.
When you say good smoothie, what's in your good smoothie?
Ooh.
Do you know, or is it Mads's magic keto?
Usually it's me making it.
Oh, nice.
So lots of different nuts, coconut oil, banana and berries.
Nice.
And then maybe a couple of dates. But
bit delicious.
Yeah.
And so prior to that, you probably would have gone for a run. Do you get up and run, or do you get up, coffee and run?
No, just get up and run.
Nice.
And come back and then have a coffee. And then usually half an hour or something later, have something to eat.
Then when's the next time you eat after that, Shaun? And what?
It'd be lunchtime, and it's usually like salads and different things.
Nice.
Sometimes it's a bit tricky. So when I'm working in the office, which is my boss's house in town, then lunch is whatever. So we get lunch there, which is quite cool. But that would be outside of. There'll be carbs in there. And I just have it because it's
Yeah.
free and I'll take it.
Totally. I get, yeah.
I'll just have a smaller portion of it than
Yeah.
everyone else. And then dinners is, we try and mix it up with all sorts of things, but Mel and I will have kumara or pumpkin or whatever instead of potatoes that the girls might have.
Yeah, nice.
And quinoa and yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think, you've really described like quite an appropriate approach for someone who does the amount of training that you do as well. And people often mistake the idea of keto and endurance athletes as absolutely no vegetables, no carbs, no tomatoes, no onions. Like people won't go near a tomato. But because it's ketogenesis, it's your body in that ketogenic state, which in part is all about the glycogen depletion. So you can still be in ketosis, and I don't know whether or not you measured, and actually you don't even need to, when you are going out and doing the type of training that you're doing. And that's the difference between an athlete and a sedentary person, I think.
Yeah. And so during the longer stuff, then I'll hook into some gels or whatever I need
nice.
to, like not shy to do that while I'm exercising. Yeah. It was quite good listening to your discussion with Zach Bitter around that. He phases things so that it's not like total no carbs, it's sort of up and down depending on where he's at with his training and racing. And
yeah, totally. So what did the food look like for you on the Revenant?
I had quite a big bag of nuts and dried fruit that I nibbled on. Yeah, nice. And then I'd have some wraps with nut butters in them. Spinach.
Yeah. What, by itself?
By itself.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a bag of spinach in my support bag so that when I got back I'd have something. And that was amazing. And people laughed at it because they'd see me eating this, just shoving the spinach in. Yeah. But it's so nice after being, having sort of racy food to have something fresh and crunchy and green. That was really good. And then just a can of tuna and some nut butters and things.
Yeah, but your stomach was completely fine?
Yeah, yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, no issues at all. Yeah. And I've got a reasonably strong stomach in that respect.
That's fortunate, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And were you on a regular schedule with regards to fueling, or did you do it by feel?
No, it was as I felt like it. Yeah. I'd be aware of how much I'd taken out on. So I had a big plastic bag for each loop.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
And
just swap it over?
I was sort of making sure that I was trying to get through that whole big bag of stuff.
Yeah, nice.
I was mixing water and tailwind because it was really hot.
Yeah.
So using tailwind as the drink, and I have one bottle that's a really concentrate tailwind that I just take sips of and then wash it down with some water.
Yeah, that's great.
So that I can refill the water bottles heaps and not have to worry about the tailwind bottle heaps. Yeah,
that's great. And is it that you felt great the entire time, or were you just that actually you were just super happy with the management of how you felt? And at the end of it was awesome.
Yeah, I think I actually felt great for most of it.
Amazing.
Usually in those things you have ups and lows and highs, and you get used to the lows that just to keep pushing because you'll come out of it and have a high. But in that one actually I don't think I had many lows at all. Yeah. I did the first lap and a half with Tom Hunt. Yes. So we sorted together, and then he exploded and had stomach issues and was like cramping all over. And after that I was by myself for the rest of it, so another two and a half laps. So yeah, that management side of that, and just feeling good the whole way. Yeah, that's why I say it was my perfect. Yeah. Because everything just seemed to go right. Like the legs didn't cramp or feel too tight. There's fatigue, but not like damage. Yeah. And the nutrition was good. Lots of people struggled with the heat. Yeah. And my heat management was great. Like every opportunity I got, I'd dunk my hat into the cool streams.
Awesome.
And a Thera or something and put that on, and that would keep me going. Yeah. And people just weren't doing that at the start, and that accumulates that heat side of things, and then whammo, you're struggling. Yeah. And so that was perfect. And the sleep was probably the one thing that could have been a little bit better.
Yeah. So how do you manage that on an event like Revenant?
Because I've done quite a few of those big things that I know that I can keep going, and then I'll take a 5-minute power nap, like wherever on the side of the track.
Do you set your alarm? What's the story?
Yeah, we can. At the Revenant, there's no watches allowed, so there's no alarms.
Of course.
So it's a bit of a guessing process. Yeah. But in the past I've had these 5 to 10 power naps, and it's just an instant recharge, and it'll keep you going for another 12 hours or whatever.
Like, for real?
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine that, because maybe it's because I'm not much of a napper, and so I probably just need more practice, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not a napper. Like, I hate sleeping during the day.
Yeah.
But the instant energy that you get, and it was most pronounced during the Trillery, about 26 hours in.
Yeah.
I was sleepwalking, effectively, and I was starting to walk off the side of the track.
Right.
And I had some people supporting me and like running with me.
Yeah.
Or sleepwalking with me.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I've got to stop and have a sleep. And these guys hadn't seen this before or done this long stuff before to know that it happened.
Yeah.
So they said, are you sure? Like, and so, no, I need to. So I just lay down across the track, literally with my head on my pack.
Yeah.
And said, wake me up in 5 minutes. And they're like, only 5 minutes? And then they sort of 5 minutes later, which felt like half an hour to me.
Oh, bless.
They softly nudged me like, do you want to wake up? Yep. And I got up and took off down the Karamatoa Hill.
Yeah.
And they were having trouble keeping up. And they just, like, afterwards they said they saw me and they thought, because they ran to meet me.
Yeah.
And said, we thought you were out there, that was it.
Oh,
but after that sleep, you were gone. We couldn't keep up.
Right. So I wondered how people manage stuff like that during an event that is so long, and of course much more challenging if you don't have a watch. Did you just have to, like, when you knew you needed to stop and sleep, did you just do it?
You just had it and hope that you didn't cark out. I'd take some layers off so that the cold would wake me up eventually.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
The first year I had to sleep on the side of a hill and I kind of had my hand up looking at the moon to try and work out, like, well, the moon's moved this much, so that might be half an hour or something. Yeah. But it wasn't very scientific. I had no idea how long I slept. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that they were sort of 5 to 15 minutes max.
That's awesome.
And then you get up and you're away.
Yeah.
But I think I left it too late, so that's why I say I had some wicked hallucinations.
Interesting. And
more vivid and hard out than I've had in the past.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably slowed me down a little bit. So sleeping a little bit earlier might have been more beneficial. Yeah.
What kind of things were you seeing? Can you tell?
Yeah. So it started off running up a 4-wheel drive track with lots of dry grass and the ruts of it. Yeah. And that dry grass is like, it's broken off and it's lying on the ground, sort of just crisscrossed or whatever. But that would, as I was making my way up the hill, it would start to form structures, so like nice shapes. Oh yeah. I thought, that's pretty cool. Like the bugs or beetles or something have like moved the dry grass stalks into shapes. Yeah. And then it became like full on scenes, like a little town made out of these. Amazing. and then it became writing and stuff.
That's when you knew.
You're thinking, these bugs aren't this smart. And then just seeing things like a rock in the distance, you think, oh, that's a person cheering me on. What do you think? And you get up there and it's a rock. Yeah. But the most vivid was there's a section up the Nukamai River, which is a hard out river with lots of rocks in that you're scampering over to get up, and hearing and then seeing these two guys on like oxes pulling a old school white caravan down this river that's full of boulders and things, and like seeing it and hearing it, and it's coming towards you. And then I went around the corner and like instantly gone, but I could have sworn that it was coming down towards me. Oh mate, it's like crazy. And that's when, and in your head you were like, okay, I think I need to sleep. Yeah. I think you've reached your limit. Yeah. And caffeine? Any caffeine? Only through the tailwind. Yeah. Okay. And so I use the caffeinated stuff at that time to keep going a little bit further. Yeah. Do you know, I've recently just chatted to Fleur Cushman from Currans, who is that's the New Zealand blackcurrant supplement. And I feel pretty sold actually after talking to her about the potential benefits for athletes in your situation, because of so much of the research supports its anti-fatigue, increases oxygen in the muscles, helps with alertness and things like that. Dougal Allen just used it as part of his Coast to Coast win. Oh, cool. As Sam Manson, I think he came second. He also is a Currans ambassador.
I reckon, Shaun, if you're looking for anything to add to your repertoire, you should reach out to them.
Yeah, because you're always looking for more natural ways of not just staying awake, but being alert and
totally,
and being onto it, so that you're not making bad decisions.
That for something like the Revenant, where so much of it is based on your decision making, so important,
And that decision might be the navigating side of things, but then in other more like solo missions or whatever, it might be being alert to not fall down a cliff or whatever.
100%. Yeah, for sure. So you had the Revenant, then I believe, did we go into COVID, go into lockdown quite?
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple of months later. You had your circumnavigate Auckland, and then Riverhead Relapse was that was postponed, I believe, wasn't it? So the first time it was meant to happen in April.
That's right. That's like
a week, so a week after lockdown. Yeah. And then we rescheduled it to August, and lockdown was 2 days before it.
That's right.
And so postponed again. So hopefully this April, maybe, fingers crossed and touching heaps of wood around here. Yeah. That will be on. But there was the Big's Backyard sort of virtual event that we did in October.
That's right. And how was that?
So that was great. It ended up being my Achilles again that stopped me. Yeah. So the Auckland circumnavigation really flared that up, because there was so much more road, like pavementy stuff. It was more urban.
It makes a massive difference, the terrain you run on, eh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I've got one leg longer than the other, like reasonably significantly. Yeah. So all the terrain stuff that I do, it's not noticeable, but we think that because it's more pavement, then that difference is throwing out my body in lots of different ways. Yeah. And so that's putting, eventually, pressure on the Achilles. Yeah, yeah. So I've got orthotics to correct that balance now, and now we're trying to untangle the calves and tightness to hopefully get that right again.
Yeah, nice. Shaun, you mentioned your challenge that you have with Mads, which is awesome. And you've recently come back from a big kind of challenge with Matt Bailey.
Yes, a little adventure. And so I want to do a lot more of those this year. So the next race that I'm focusing on, the Blue Lake Challenge, 24-hour challenge. Yes. Yeah, so I want to go as far as I can in that. Yeah. I did it in 2018. Awesome. And I sort of wanted to do a mile to get you get a pit flask bout buckle as the trophy for doing the miler. Yes. So that's what I focused on, and I stopped when I pretty much just after I'd got to the mile.
So you could have actually gone further.
And that was in 19 hours 3/4. So I still had some hours to go.
Oh yeah.
So I still think that there's the trophy called the Claw for doing 200 Ks in the 24 hours.
I've seen that actually. Someone tagged you in a post on Facebook.
They did.
Yes.
They laid down the challenge.
They did.
But I don't want to set a limit saying I want to do 200 Ks. I just want to go as far as I can. Yeah, cool. And knowing how far I've gone in the past and that I'm fitter than I was then. Yeah. So I just want to, get over 200 and set a bench stone for me is to more of a speed thing rather than all these other things that I've done where it's finishing a long distance thing. Yeah,
that sounds epic. And if when I speak to the likes of yourself, I get very motivated, but like I say, I then wake up the next day and I'm like, no, what? Don't just put me on my elliptical. I'll just go on that for 20 minutes, thank you very much.
You might have to say it out loud while you're on the podcast, and then you can't back away from it.
You know what? You're right, actually, Shaun. And in fact, what I have said I would do on the podcast is do this across the lake swim next weekend in Taupua, 4.2k.
Oh, gee,
which, like my typical swimming distance would be 4.2k over 2 weeks. So I've been putting in a few extra kilometres in the swim, but I know you're right, and actually as I speak to you about it, it seems much more achievable to do the long stuff because you talk about it in a way that is achievable for pretty much anyone, really. Of course it's always priorities. You've got to navigate that space with running, with family, with work, and I'm not saying that if you can do it, anyone can do it, but certainly you've talked to us about some of the things you've used to help overcome some of those challenges that we all face,
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot more achievable than people think.
Yeah.
And, you go to the office and people say, what did you do on the weekend? Oh, I ran 100 Ks. And wow, you must be crazy. Like, I can't drive 100 miles. And, but it is like, it's those slow steps to build up the distance and the tools.
Yeah.
We had the Tarawera ultra marathon and the weekend been just before, and some people that I know are doing it mates, and that is like ramming home to them beforehand, like, just tick off the basics: food, nutrition, pace at the start, and the rest of it will look after itself. And so it's having that in the background, that knowledge that your body can just keep going and going, and you don't have to be a superstar.
Yeah. And what I really love, Shaun, about how you approach it and just your general approach is that you might go out and do these epic hundreds of kilometres, but you can also see that for some people their epic adventure is that 10 kilometres on the trails, or doing park run every Saturday. You really see the challenge for so many people, and you motivate so many people on every level, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that's what motivates me to organise the event side of things.
Yeah.
When people ask, like, why do you organise events? And it's all about giving people that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of the time, because lots of our events are sort of off-roady and adventure-y, as opposed to road events and things.
Yeah.
And so it's giving people a safe environment where they can stretch their limit of where they've gone or what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
And it's so rewarding to see people do that. They might do, or when we had the Hillary Trail, they'd do the 16K, and that was their first trail run.
Yes.
And then they do it and they're like, wow, that was awesome. And then they do other events during the year, and then you see them, they've jumped up to the next distance.
Yeah.
And then, and some of them might jump up to the 8K Ultra.
Yeah, amazing.
And they come back and I remember you 2 years ago, and I saw you at the finish and thought, that's awesome. Yeah. After seeing that at the start and thinking, oh, this is going to hurt.
Yeah. So great. Yeah. And, we were talking before we came on, and there is, the potential that, the Hillary is not done and dusted, is it?
No. So speaking to the Ranger team, and we're looking at the end of 2022 for the Hillary Trail to be open again.
Awesome.
And so the event would be back soon as after that.
Yeah.
Which will be awesome.
And will you celebrate by doing a quadrillary?
No. No. Doing 3 was a stretch. Yeah. As far as my wanting to explore new places.
Yes.
And I mean, the Trillery was after doing a double and organising the event. So it's an area that I know well now. And this year's all about going to new places. Nice. And doing little adventures in new places, travelling a bit further. But and taking some people along to have some fun and enjoy it as well, giving them experiences, which is cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So Shaun, obviously Lactic Turkey, it's one of the, you guys run some fabulous races. People can touch base with you at Lactic Turkey. Where else can people find you?
So I've Insta and Facebook Running Beast.
Yes.
And so that sort of captures all of my adventures and lots of photos on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fabulous, and you're always so connected with your audience as well, and I absolutely love it. And I always feel really quite privileged when you comment on something I do. I'm like, oh, Shaun saw that, that's wicked.
No, it's cool. Organising the events, you get to know lots of people and be introduced to lots of people. Yeah. And quite often people will come over and say, oh, you're Shaun, and I won't have a clue who they are. Yeah. But I'll recognise them. But it's great having that reach and introducing people to our world, I guess. Yeah. No, it's awesome, Shaun.
Thank you so much for your time today, and I'd offer you a beer, but you've got to scoot home and then come back.
And then come back for beers.
Come back for beers. That sounds great. Shaun, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay team, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and anything that we discussed that will be useful for you to know will be in the show notes, so absolutely check them out for some of those links that we talked about. And as I said, you can catch Shaun at The Running Beast on Instagram and over on Strava, and also check out his events at lacticturkey.co.nz. And Next week, I get to sit down with one of my most favourite people to follow on Instagram, Lola Berry, aka Lauren Smith, aka Australia's most well-known nutritionist, and she is just one of the warmest, awesome individuals that I've had the pleasure of chatting to. So I'm really looking forward to bringing to you my conversation with Lola, and we chat all things nutrition and life and beyond. Until then though, you can catch me at Twitter and Instagram at Mikki Williden, on Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, and over on my website mikkiwilliden.com, where you can sign up to any of my online coaching plans that I have, or go to my website, check out one of my free courses, and then you get enrolled into getting weekly emails from me where I talk all about anything and everything that's on my mind with regards to nutrition and what I've been reading in the research. So it's a really good way for us to stay connected. Until then, if you enjoy the show, please share it with your mates, subscribe on your favourite platform, leave us a review. We really appreciate all of that, and thank you so much for your support. All right, team, until next week, see you soon. Bye.